When most people imagine Los Angeles, they picture something very different. Endless highways, palm trees, massive studios, the global center of movies and celebrity culture. But in the year 1900, none of that exists. There are no film studios, no Hollywood sign, no skyscrapers rising above the skyline. Instead, Los Angeles is a dusty frontier town, a place where dirt roads stretch through farmland, where oil derricks rise beside orange groves, where horses still outnumber automobiles, and where only about 100,000 people live in the entire city. It's hard to imagine today, but the most famous city in the entertainment world once looked more like a quiet agricultural outpost. And yet, beneath the dust and farmland, something powerful is beginning, a transformation that will turn this small western town into one of the most influential cities on Earth. But in 1900, that future is still invisible. At the turn of the 20th century, Los Angeles is not a global city. It is barely even considered a major American city. New York dominates finance. Chicago controls railroads and industry. San Francisco leads the West Coast. Los Angeles sits quietly in Southern California, a hot, dry region surrounded by farmland, mountains, and desert. The streets are simple. Most buildings rise only 2 or 3 stories high. Wooden storefronts line dusty roads. Horse-drawn wagons carry goods through town. At night, oil lamps light the streets. It feels small, remote, almost forgotten. But something about this place attracts people: the climate, the land, and the promise of opportunity. At the beginning of the 20th century, Los Angeles is not known for entertainment or industry. It is known for agriculture. Beyond the small downtown area, the landscape quickly changes. Streets give way to open land, and the city blends almost seamlessly into fields and orchards. Orange groves stretch across the valleys, their trees lined in perfect rows under the bright California sun. Farmers spend long days tending crops, watering trees, and preparing harvests that will soon travel thousands of miles. The region becomes famous for its citrus. Boxes labeled California oranges are shipped east by railroad, arriving in cities like Chicago and New York as symbols of freshness and sunshine from the West. For many Americans, Los Angeles is not yet a city of opportunity for actors or filmmakers. It is a place of fertile land and endless harvests. Small farms surround the growing town. Barns stand beside dirt roads. Windmills pump water from deep underground wells that keep crops alive through the long, dry seasons. In the early morning, wagons loaded with fruit roll toward railway stations, where produce will be packed into refrigerated rail cars. From there, the harvest begins a long journey across the country. For now, agriculture defines the rhythm of life in Los Angeles. But beneath this peaceful landscape, another resource is waiting to transform everything. In the late 1800s, something unexpected is discovered beneath the soil of Southern California: oil, large amounts of it. Soon, oil derricks begin appearing across the region. Tall wooden drilling towers rise above farmland. Pumps creak slowly day and night. Black crude oil flows from underground reservoirs. By the early 1900s, Los Angeles becomes one of the largest oil-producing regions in the world. Oil fields appear surprisingly close to the city. Some derricks even stand inside neighborhoods. Workers flood into the region hoping to find jobs. Money begins flowing into the local economy. And suddenly, Los Angeles no longer feels like a quiet farming town. It feels like a place about to explode with opportunity. Another force begins reshaping Los Angeles: railroads. During the late 1800s, major rail lines connect Southern California with the rest of the United States. Travel that once took weeks now takes days. People from the Midwest and East Coast begin arriving in large numbers. Some come for work, others come for something else. The weather? Los Angeles becomes famous as a health destination. Doctors recommend the warm climate for patients suffering from tuberculosis and other illnesses. Advertisements promise sunshine, clean air, and a better life. Thousands believe those promises, and they begin moving west. The population slowly starts to rise, but the city still looks nothing like modern Los Angeles. That change is still waiting in the future. Stand in downtown Los Angeles in the year 1900 and look toward the horizon. You won't see towering buildings, no steel skyscrapers cutting into the sky, no dense skyline stretching across the city. Instead, the view feels wide and open. Most buildings rise only 2 or 3 stories high. Brick storefronts, wooden structures, small hotels, and simple office buildings line the streets. Church towers and water tanks are often the tallest points visible above the rooftops. The streets themselves feel spacious but quiet. Electric streetcars glide slowly along metal rails, while horse-drawn wagons carry produce, lumber, and oil equipment through the dusty roads. In the warm California sun, dust lifts from the ground each time a wagon rolls past, and only a few blocks away from the center of town, the city already begins to fade back into farmland. Orange groves stretch across the landscape. Fields and barns sit where future neighborhoods will someday rise. Looking at Los Angeles in 1900, it is almost impossible to imagine that one day this quiet, low skyline will transform into one of the largest urban skylines in the United States. At the beginning of the 1900s, the film industry in America is still very young. Most early movie production happens on the East Coast, especially in New York and New Jersey. Small studios experiment with short silent films, simple stories, and primitive cameras. The technology is new, and the entire industry is still trying to figure out what movies can become. But filmmakers on the East Coast quickly face a series of problems. The first problem is weather. Filming at this time depends heavily on natural sunlight. Cameras require bright light to capture clear images. But in the northeastern United States, cloudy skies, rain, and long winters make filming difficult for much of the year. Some productions are forced to stop for weeks at a time simply because the sun doesn't appear. The second problem is space. Cities like New York are crowded and expensive. Large open landscapes for filming are difficult to find, and renting land costs a great deal of money. But the third problem is the most serious: control. At the time, many film patents are owned by companies connected to the famous inventor Thomas Edison. His organization aggressively protects these patents, charging fees and sometimes suing independent filmmakers who attempt to produce movies without permission. For many small filmmakers, working under these restrictions becomes almost impossible. So some producers begin looking for a new location, a place far away from the patent enforcement of the East Coast, a place with wide open land, a place where the sun shines almost every day. They find that place in Los Angeles, and especially in a small nearby district called Hollywood. The climate is perfect for filming. Sunlight is constant. Mountains, deserts, beaches, and farmland all exist within a short distance. land is cheap, and the distance from New York makes it harder for patent investigators to interfere. What begins as a practical decision by a few filmmakers soon becomes something much larger. A new center of filmmaking begins forming in Southern California. And within a few decades, Hollywood will become the most famous film industry in the world. At the beginning of the 1910s, something unusual starts happening around Los Angeles. Small groups of filmmakers begin arriving from the East Coast. They travel thousands of miles by train, carrying heavy cameras, fragile film reels, costumes, and simple wooden props. At first, these crews are tiny, sometimes only a handful of actors, a cameraman, and a director. They aren't building large studios yet. Instead, they use what Southern California already offers: endless open land, bright sunlight, and natural scenery. Filming often takes place outdoors, in the hills outside the city, on dusty rural roads, near farms and small villages. Western landscapes become perfect backdrops for early movies. Cowboys ride across real fields. Stagecoach scenes are filmed on dirt trails. Small wooden houses become makeshift film sets. Local residents sometimes watch the filming with curiosity. For many people in Los Angeles, these strange cameras and actors look more like traveling performers than the beginning of a major industry. No one imagines that these small productions will soon grow into something enormous. Within just a few years, more filmmakers begin arriving. More cameras, more actors, more money. Small filming locations slowly turn into permanent studios. And the quiet district called Hollywood, which in 1900 was mostly farmland and orchards, begins transforming into something entirely new: the global center of motion pictures. But at this moment, it all still looks small, almost temporary. Just a few film crews with cameras, experimenting under the California sun. As the first years of the 20th century pass, Los Angeles begins to change faster than anyone expected. What was once a quiet town of farms and orchards slowly transforms into something larger. Oil money flows into the city, attracting investors, engineers, and workers from across the country. New businesses appear almost every month. Construction spreads outward from the small downtown district. Wooden buildings are replaced by larger brick structures. Warehouses rise near the rail lines. Workshops and factories begin operating on the edges of the city. At the same time, the population grows rapidly. Thousands of newcomers arrive each year, drawn by the promise of opportunity, sunshine, and cheap land. Electric streetcars expand across the region, connecting distant neighborhoods and making the city feel suddenly much bigger. What was once a dusty western town is quietly becoming an industrial center. And although few residents realize it yet, this boom is only the beginning. Within the next few decades, Los Angeles will grow into one of the largest and most influential cities in the world. Within just a few decades, Los Angeles will change faster than almost anyone in 1900 could imagine. The quiet agricultural town begins expanding in every direction. New neighborhoods replace farmland. Dirt roads are paved. Electric lights replace oil lamps. The population grows rapidly as thousands of new residents arrive searching for opportunity. Oil money continues fueling development, while the film industry transforms a small district called Hollywood into the center of global entertainment. Studios expand, actors arrive from across the country, and filmmaking becomes a powerful new industry. Skyscrapers slowly begin to rise in downtown. Streetcar lines stretch farther into the valley. Businesses multiply. Construction never seems to stop. The dusty frontier town of 1900 gradually transforms into a modern city, a place of industry, culture, and ambition. What once looked like a quiet western outpost is now becoming one of the most influential cities in the world. What you've just seen is a reconstruction of Los Angeles around the year 1900, before the rise of Hollywood and the massive growth of the city. The streets, farms, oil fields, and early neighborhoods were recreated using artificial intelligence tools to visualize how the city may have looked at the beginning of the 20th century. Technology now allows us to explore moments from the past in ways that were once impossible. If you want to see more hidden chapters of history, forgotten cities, daily life in the past, and the origins of the modern world, subscribe for the next journey into history. Because sometimes the biggest cities in the world start as quiet places no one expects.